So you may have to push a button on your screen to acknowledge that there's a recording. I'm going to go ahead and mute people, but please feel free to unmute at any point and ask questions. I mute you only because I know it's difficult to hear me. So you can unmute at any point, and I welcome your questions. So welcome to Painting Birds, and we are going to be painting this beautiful egret. So make sure you have a reference photo printed. It's much easier to do this painting with something printed on plain paper. So I encourage you to do that. I'll talk real slow if you need to go over to the printer and get that done. Now, before I do a painting, I always start off with a couple of sketches just to determine my values and my composition. So one of the things I noticed straight away about this photo is when you apply the rule of thirds, the composition isn't all that great. So, and it's an AI generated image, by the way, you probably noticed. So what I did is I just moved the rule of thirds to intersect with the bird's eye. Now, the rule of thirds, if you're not familiar with it, it's the grid that looks like tic-tac-toe that pops up on your cell phone when you shoot a picture. So I use it as a compositional device to try to make sure that my focal point is intersecting one of those four intersections. Now, the reason for this is if it's too dead center, like the way this bird is, then it's not as interesting to the human eye. So there's been a lot of studies that indicate that the human eye reads and interprets images differently than a camera. And and for artists, we need to take that into account and use it to our best advantage. So we want to keep from putting our focal point in the dead center. That's the no-no zone. Instead, we want to keep it near an intersection of the rule of thirds. So incorporating that, I'm going to line up the body of the bird with one of the vertical lines, line up the eye with a horizontal and vertical corner. That's going to be my focal point. I want this to be where most of my hard edges and detail are. Everything else is going to lead your eye to it. Now, in doing a color study, I determined that what's behind the bird is not important. Instead, I want to let there be a texture difference so that everything behind the bird is lost. It's a lost edge, and it guides you to the found edges of the bird itself. So, lost edges are like the music that plays in the background at a restaurant. You know, the found edges are the main course. You really want to show it off and make it the center of attention. We want everything else to back it up. So that's why I'm limiting some of the detail that's in the background. Okay, now having said that, who is using oil? Is there anyone using oil today? Okay, so Candy, what and Anne is usually using oil. She'll probably be here late. So what we're going to do is to go ahead and pre-sketch the canvas. If you're using acrylic, you don't have to, but it may be helpful for you so you can leave the space um, clear on the canvas. So I'm going to show you a quick way to pre-sketch. And it does not matter to me how you do it. It just matters to me that you get it pre-sketched. So this is the reference photo. If I turn the reference photo around and use a piece of charcoal on the back, I'm just coating the paper where the bird is, like so. I'm going to put the bird where the rule of thirds would dictate. that I would go. So right about there. And use the back end of a paintbrush. So not the soft part, but the back end. I don't want to use a pencil for this because a pencil is going to leave a mark and cause my photo reference to be altered and not as clear to me. So using the back end of a paintbrush helps me get the basic shape in place without as much fuss. Now, we're going to be painting the background. So a lot of what I'm putting on the canvas is going to disappear almost as soon as I start painting. But what I have done is set up a ghost-like image of the heron. So you can see, roughly where the bird's going to be. Here's the rule of thirds. So that's roughly how the rule of thirds will fit on that canvas. So I encourage you to take a moment and go ahead and pre-sketch. Okay, so welcome to Dr. Post and Kate. How wonderful to see you. So what I was just telling people is that we're going to start off by pre-sketching. A quick way to pre-sketch, if you're not familiar with it, is to take your reference photo, which is printed on a piece of paper, put a little charcoal on the back, and then transfer to your canvas. All we need is the basic outline because we're going to paint the background first. So we just want to have the big basic shape of the bird, paying close attention to the neck. The neck is a tricky one here. So make sure you get that. And when you have your canvas pre-sketched, just give me a thumbs up so I know you're all caught up. So if you are caught up, I'm going to go ahead and put our palette up so you can see what to set out. That way, while you're waiting. While you're getting your palette together, I'm going to go through a few of the brushes. I'm using about an inch flat. This is for the background. You want to be really painterly with it. I'm using a liner for some of the smaller details or a small brush. I'm also using a small flat to get some of the smaller details and about a ½ inch flat. And this is for some of the feathers and textures. You may want to opt for, something tiny for pupils and lines around the eyes. Let's see. Is there anyone who still needs a minute to get ready? Give me a little wave. You're still getting ready. Okay. I'll give you
Sean,
another minute.
are we
Mhm.
using black?
Yes.
Okay. Black and umber.
Yes. Both.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just for the record, I'm using ultramarine tonight, um, and alizarin, cadmium yellow, raw umber, titanium white, and black. This is what the actual palette looks like. Candy, if you have a question, you can just unmute and ask. I'll send you a request.
I got it. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have any, I wasn't able to get any cadmium yellow medium. I got cadmium yellow light, and I was going to use like Indian yellow to kind of tone it down. Would that work?
So try to get a color that's close to that.
Okay.
So anything you have that's close. And these paint manufacturers aren't all that consistent with the colors.
Yeah.
So it may say cadmium yellow medium and be a totally different color. All right, wonderful. Now, when I have a painting to do from a reference photo, the first question I ask myself is what's the best way to approach this? When I do my studies ahead of time, the studies usually answer that question for me. So, in the process of doing the studies, I realized that I needed to paint the background first and to put the bird on top of it. Now, the reason behind this is look at all of the loft edges in the background and look at the hard edges of the bird. It would be really hard to make these big soft blends if you already had the bird in place. So you want to make it as easy as possible on yourself. So when you're evaluating your reference photo and making these choices, try to pick the one that requires the least amount of finagling or being real careful. So for tonight, we're going to totally paint the background and then we're going to move to the foreground. So let's just make sure everyone's ready. Give me a thumbs up if you're all set. Thank you guys. Awesome. Katie, you're ready? Just making sure you're ready. Okay, perfect. Good. I am going to push you to go fast, but I don't want to go so fast that you get lost. I want to go fast enough that we stay just ahead of your perfectionism. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so I'm starting off with a big 1 inch brush, and I'm going to mix some color for the background. Now, I'm going to start off by putting some thinner on this brush. In this case, I'm using water. If you're using oil, dip it in your solvent or your turpentine or linseed oil. You want to make sure that you're making a thin wash for the background. So I'm painting, it looks like melted chocolate I'm using raw umber. I'm going to go right up to the bird, right behind the bird's neck. And I'm painting in some of the dark background. Now, if you're using acrylic, we want to do this real fast because the paint's going to set up and dry. I want it to be very dark right behind the S curve in the neck because that's going to show off that beautiful, graceful neck and also push the bird forward. Using a little solvent, if you're using oil, will help it to dry quicker so that when you come back on top of it with some of the feathers, it will give you a sharp edge and not mix as much. Okay, I'm gonna immediately mix some green. I still have the umber on my paintbrush, but I'm taking a little bit of the ultramarine blue, a good chunk of yellow, and I'm mixing green. Now, because I have brown, it's going to dull the green a little, which is what I want. I want it to mix some with the background color. I'm going to put the green just above the brown and work it right into that brown. So there's some, you can't really tell where the brown ends and the green begins. I want you to go right up to and overlap your sketch just slightly. Make sure there isn't a halo around the bird. No halo. Go right up to and overlap it. In places where you have some of those thin feathers that are backlit by the light, just paint the background in first and don't worry about the feathers yet. Don't leave space for them because the light color of acrylic will actually, or oil, will go on top. Now, here's a tip on the water. Make your brush strokes vertical. So that will give the impression of water reflection. Keep your brush strokes very vertical. All right. And then towards the end, pick up just some pure yellow on your brush. You don't have to try to clean your brush, but up at the top, introduce the pure yellow towards the top of the painting. That'll give us a sense of light coming in from overhead. And then repeat it down in the water so that you have the reflection of that pure yellow down in the water. Extra credit if you also add a touch of red and get a tiny bit of orange in that water too. All right, so when you reach a point where you have your background looking very painterly, nondescript, try to make sure there is no halo effect. Get rid of any halo effect around the bird. Normally, I would paint this whole background first and then put the bird on. But when you're using oil, you really want to have the sketch first before you put the oil down. So we're going to make an exception this time. Um, Try not to put your paint on too thick. We want it to dry quick. So reach a stopping point, and we're going to put in the reflection while the paint is still wet. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to finish up your background, and then we'll do the reflection. Okay, while the paint is still wet, clean excess paint off your brush, dip it in the water so that the brush is damp but not dripping, and then use it as an eraser to lift up some of the paint. We're going to add paint later, but right now we're subtracting. So when you lift up the paint, wipe it off onto a rag and do it again. And let's say get 3 or 4 erasers. Try to space them apart so that they're close together, close to the bird. And then as you move away from the bird, they get further apart. And that'll give the impression of ripples in the pond. Again, we're going to be adding color later, so you'll get a second chance at it. But you want to lift up some of that paint first, just to make an indication of where they go. Be aware that there should be no hard edges or architectural lines in the background. Nothing that will draw the eye away from the bird. Okay, now this is still going to be wet for a little while. So we're going to be working on some of the detail work inside the bird to give the background a chance to dry. So if you haven't already, rinse that brush you were using, wipe it off. We want to keep it clean for the next thing. And we're going to work on the eye. So let's get it done and out of the way. So use your smaller brush for the eye. I'm going to use a ruler as a maul stick. Now, a maul stick is something that you place on the edge of your canvas to support your hand, so you're not putting your hand in the painting you just made. So any kind of hard edge will work, even another brush. Now, to get that eye, I'm going to start off by putting some yellow paint just on the tip of this brush. I'm going to paint the whole eye. I'll flip the paintbrush around and use the butt end of the brush. I'm dipping it in black paint, getting just a little bit on the back end of it. And I'm going to use this to put the pupil in place. You don't need much paint on the brush in order to do that. And we want to get the center part of the eye. Now you'll notice that the eye has a little eyeliner around it. So I'm making sure that the yellow is out of the bristles, dipping the bristles in a little bit of black, and then using just the tip of it, I'm going to put the line, oops, right around the edge. If I mess up at this point, it's not a big deal because I'm going to be painting some of the feathers. If you're having a hard time getting a thin line, dip your paintbrush in water or solvent first and then in paint. And that'll thin the black paint and let it come off the brush a little easier, a little smoother. Once I have a reasonable facsimile, I'm going to go ahead and put the dark line on the mouth that separates the beak. And again, doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to go on top of this in a little while. Notice the top part of the beak is thinner than the bottom. All right, and while you have that dark paint on your brush, there's a little cowlick on the back of the head of the bird, a single graceful line connects to the top of the bird. We'll be breaking that into a fork on the bottom with a highlight. So you don't have to paint the highlight now. You're just doing the dark part. And that's all you need that little detail brush for. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Okay. Looks like everybody is caught up. If anyone needs another second, give me a wave. All right, wonderful. Now we're going to start working on the plumage. And you'll notice that the darkest color on the plumage is an indigo dark blue. So to get that indigo color, I'm moving to a 1/2 inch brush and I'm mixing a little ultramarine. I'm going to start off by testing this ultramarine on its own to see how close it is. I use it directly on the reference photo to test. It's close. It needs a little something, something. So to make that something, something, I'm going to take that color, put it in the middle, and put a touch of umber in it. The umber is going to gray it down and make it darker. Now I have a very dark version. I'm going to lighten it just a touch with a little bit of white. Now I know that sounds like a lot of trouble to go through, but what I'm doing is graying this color. And you can see the difference right away between it and the pure color. So the pure color is a little too intense. So to knock down the intensity of that color, I grayed it out by putting a touch of umber, very small amount, and a touch of white. So this gives me a dark navy blue, almost an indigo. It's a good intense blue. I'm going to put it in a spot on the plumage. And that's pretty darn close. So I'm putting this color on the tail feathers as a shadow on some of the wing feathers and towards the bottom part of the bird. I'll pull this up close. So going up to where the legs are. That dark, intense blue goes on the shoulder. And also in a checkerboard pattern using downward strokes on the neck. All right. Now there's a little cap on the bird's head that's one step lighter. So to get that color, while this paint is still wet, I'm going to put a touch of white, just a small touch. Go one step lighter. If I'm not sure if this is the correct color, I give it a test. Put a little bit on the reference photo. If it blends in or is close to it, then you're good to go. So using that one step lighter blue, go ahead and paint the cap. Okay, now we're going to use that color in a few other places. So we've gone one step lighter. This is still that same one step lighter color. I'm going to put a little bit of it on the back of the bird. And on the feathers on the back of the bird. So you'll see the feathers lay like sheets of paper on top of each other. So I'm putting a little edge of that color. All right, next we're going to mix the color for the feathers on the wing. So this color is not much different than the one we just mixed. It's a little bit grayer than blue. So to make this color more gray, I'm going to start off by adding a little more blue to it, a little more uh, of the umber, and a little more white. I periodically check it. This definitely needs a little more umber and a little more white. I'm looking for something that would be about a 3 value. So something towards the middle. This is close to it. It's a cool gray. Cool gray. If I'm not sure if I got it, I give it a test. So this color is close to it. This is good for the top part of the wing, but it needs to be darker for the bottom part. So that helps me to figure out the color mixture. Now, if this is complicated to you, it'll get easier. The more you play with color and learn to mix color, the easier color mixing and matching will be. So I'm going to start by putting that lighter color towards the top, and I'm making my brush follow the shape of the wing. So I start towards the center of the wing with my brush strokes and pull the paint towards the bottom of the wing. As I begin to run out, then I can go a little darker with my mixture. So to make it darker, I'm going to add a little more umber and blue. With the darker color, same thing. I'm going to follow the wing feathers all the way down towards the back. I'm just letting the subtle gradation be enough to delineate those feathers. You don't want to paint every feather. Now, don't go crazy trying to paint every individual feather. You just want to give the impression of feathers. So a little texture, a little difference between the gradation from light to dark. And that's all you need to define those feathers. All right. Now we're going to mix the color of the feathers that are just above these. So the lighter feathers, not the fluffy whitish looking ones, but the color behind it. So this color is kind of a light grayish blue. It's also the color towards the top part of the bird on the back and those feathers. So similar color that we just mixed. I'm starting off with blue. I'm lightening it with white. And then I'm going to gray it with a touch of umber. Now, this is a lighter color, so I want to keep it light. Periodically, I double check by testing it on the reference photo. Am I close? Wow, that is spot on. So when I find the color that works, I'm going to start blocking in with that lighter color. Now you already have some color on there. If it mixes, mazel tov, that's good. If it doesn't and it's already dry, that's okay. You can layer on top of it and you'll still see some of the other color through it. If you're using oils, it'll still be wet. With acrylics, it may be dry already. So I'm putting the lighter part on these feathers. This will help delineate those feathers. And then use that color to fill in pretty much the whole back of the bird because we're going to be putting the light breeding plumage on top of this color. So we need to have something uh, down to paint over. If you use the light color on top of a light color, it won't show up. So we need to have something, a medium value at least, for it to show up. All right, same color. I'm going to move up the back of the neck. I'm going to change this color a little bit for the neck, but you'll notice that the neck becomes more gray where it curves. That's a crest shadow. So the neck is picking up some of the reflected light from the surface of the water and such. So to gray that out, I'm going to put a tiny touch of red, just a dab. You really don't need much because red has so much tinting power, it will quickly overwhelm. So I'm putting a tiny touch of red into my grayish mixture. This is going to warm it just a touch. And with that warmer color, maybe that's too red. If it's too red, just put a little more of the umber. We want it to be a warm neutral. So that's right about where the throat is. And then right under the bill. We're going to do one more pass and then take a look at the paintings to make sure we're on the right track. So finish up with this color. All right. Now, notice that the bird is backlit. So there is light on the edges of the bird. Everything in the front of the bird is in shadow. So this may look like white, but it's actually a shadow white. When you compare it to the white that's around the edge, you'll see that white is a warmer white. This is a cooler white. So instead of using pure white, we're going to use some white with a little bit of blue. So I'm putting just a touch, making a light blue. You can see the difference between this cool white and pure white. So that's pure white, that's cool. We're making a cool white, and Actually, I think I'll switch to a smaller brush for this. We're going to get into some of the small details on the bird's face. So I'm moving to, this is about a 1/4 inch flat. And starting at the bill, I'm going to apply this paint thick, close to the eye, and it'll help me shape that eye. So if my brush work wasn't the best that it could be, that will help me to redeem it. Going right around the cap. And this is the lighter color on the bird's neck. Now we're going to put those whiskers on light yellow later, so don't do those right now, but do the top part of the beak and make sure that you're getting a hard edge all the way out to the tip. If you make a mistake on the beak, you can wet your paper towel and clean it up, or use the wet edge of a brush, and that'll help you clean it up. While the paint's still wet, you can lift it. But once it dries, you really have to let it be. So make sure you clean it up right away if you make a mistake. Now finish painting the neck so that you have that light color going into the neck. You may need to mix a little more of the light blue to get that done. Try not to have any hard lines on the feathers on the neck. Those feathers are very smooth. So to get that smooth texture, we're making sure that we blend the colors together well. Use that light blue on the neck feathers in between the dark blue for the checkerboard in the very front. You'll see there's some strokes, they go down towards the water around the dark part. All right, so that's about the halfway point. So when you reach that point, stop for a second and let's take a look at these so we can make sure we're on the right track and head off any mistakes before they start. So when you're at this point, give me a wave and I'll take a look. All right, who's ready for mid-class check-in? Candy, let's take a look. Hey, Candy. Ooh, that's looking good. Hold on, I'm putting you in the close-up view. Good. Okay. Background looks awesome. Now be careful with the little herringbone pattern, the checkerboard pattern on the front of the neck. Don't let it become too perfect.
Okay.
So you want to have it diffused and blended a little, and just little bits of the light coming through the dark. Okay. Other than that, everything else looks beautiful, spot on.
Okay. And I couldn't trace it because I didn't have a picture done and I couldn't get to my computer fast enough. So I kind of drew it myself. So that's why it isn't as
Okay.
perfect.
That's perfectly fine. And Candy, it doesn't matter to me how the image gets on the canvas. So
Okay.
if you prefer to do it that way, that's fine too.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good work, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. And Suzanne. Hey there. Ooh, I love the color in the background. So that's gorgeous. Now, the beak is a little shortened.
Hmm. I painted over it a little bit in my background, so I'm going to recreate it when we get to that point.
Okay, good.
Because I noticed
Also,
we have a he has a little he has a little beard, little fuzzy
yes,
beard, and then he's got this the orange part of the beak, so that's what I was going to make. Do you want me to paint it now in the lighter?
no, you don't have to, just as long as you're aware of it.
Yep.
Also, look at the negative space in the neck where the neck meets the back on the reference photo.
Here.
Yes,
Here?
yes. So the hump of the back goes, it's a little more rounded and it fills up that space a little more.
It fills up this space on the back or this space?
That space.
This space.
Yes.
Yeah, I
So,
drew it also. I did not trace.
okay. So
Okay.
pay attention to that negative space shape. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
It kind of it goes this way instead of this way. You're talking.
Yeah. Let me
Okay.
show real quick on the easel. Okay. So this is the negative space right here.
Right.
And you want to try to paint that negative space or this negative space. It's easier to see this rather than to see this because your head will say, that's crazy. How could it be such a perfect hump? But if you see this shape and you sketch it, it'll make more sense.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Who else is ready? Bruce. Hey, Bruce. Now you're still muted, so don't forget to unmute.
Okay.
Perfect. You did it. You're
Okay.
unmuted. Okay.
No.
Ooh, I love that little touch of warm behind the bird. That looks terrific. The body is perfect. The head is perfect. Be careful with that pattern on the neck.
Yeah. So what do I do with that? Um, go over it a bit with
You,
some of the lighter blue?
yes, yes, exactly. So that light blue that we just mixed, use it on the front part of the neck and keep the dark blue towards the middle.
Okay.
Okay, good job, my friend. Anne, are you ready? And then Kate, you'll be right after her. Hi, Ann. How wonderful to see
I'm
you.
so excited to learn how to paint birds. Please be kind. This is my first.
I totally get it. And this is one that you have up in the Hudson Valley.
What is it,
So
an
I
egret?
made it.
What is it?
No, it's a heron. It's a great blue heron.
Oh, great blue. I've actually seen some. Yeah, wow. Hold on, I have one of
Okay,
these.
good. Now back up a little. Good. So the shape looks wonderful. You've got that S curve in the neck. Be careful on the throat. There's a hitch in the throat.
Hmm.
You see where there's almost a
Yeah.
perfect C shape or an S shape on the top part of the bird's head.
Yeah,
And then there's a little hiccup where the throat
gotcha.
is.
Yep.
So you want to get that little hiccup because that's why the value change in the neck happens.
Yeah.
You make it darker there. Also, let the tail feathers go a little further back. It's cut off on your photo reference, but they actually should go a little further back since you have that much canvas.
Okay.
Does that
Got
make
it.
sense to you? Okay.
Yep.
Good job, my friend. All right, Kate. And then Lynn, you'll be after Kate. Hi, Kate. Lovely to see you. It's the Blur My Background app that's doing that. So you know where that is? It's on your video settings, the little arrow right next to the video camera. If you click it and then go to the middle where it says Blur My Background, and you can take it off there. You click the video part, but click the up arrow right next to it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's turned
Well,
off. I don't know why it's doing
okay.
that.
I don't either. Anyway, bring it. If you can put your face behind it, it might be trying to do facial recognition. Okay, that's better. That's better. I know you probably can't see that well now. Kate, I see absolutely no problems with this. You have the proportion correct. You have some beautiful texture and color in the feathers. I really like the feathers. So, looking at the beak, I see no problems. I think you're good to go. Beautiful work.
That is weird about the blurring, but thank you.
It might be a facial recognition thing. I don't know. Sometimes Zoom puts these uh, little upgrades in that are surprises. Okay, Lynn, putting you in the spotlight. Don't forget to unmute. Hey, Lynn, nice background. This is
Thanks.
awesome so far. Awesome. Be careful with the neck. Don't let it be too perfect there.
Okay.
You know, the pattern, the checkerboard pattern in the front. The
Okay.
shape of it is spot on.
Okay.
Now, on the very back side, that was
Mhm.
cut off in the photo reference.
Yes.
Just keep that dark and make it dark all the way behind.
Okay. And up too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Gorgeous.
Great. Thanks.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to give y'all a minute to make any changes you need to make at this point before we continue.
No, she just,
All right, one more minute. I see you all hard at work. One more minute. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the next phase. So this is the second half of the painting. I'm starting off with the small 1/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to the warm side. So we're going to be doing some of the warmer colors. I'm going to start off with yellow, just a little bit of yellow on the brush. There's a hint of yellow between the eye and the nostril on the beak, so I'm putting just a little hint of it up here. Then I'm going to continue that yellow on the underside of the beak, right towards the middle, and then switch to orange. So to make the orange, I'm using twice as much yellow as I do red, mixing the two together. This is more of a yellow orange. So when I have the color and test it and feel that it's appropriate, then I'm going to fill in the bottom part of the beak, keeping the orangest part towards the center. Now, while you have that orange color on your brush, let's go back to those ripples in the water and give them a little warmth. So I'm just putting some orange on the surface of the water there. All right. And then lastly, with the orange, I'm going to put some umber in with the orange. This is a makes it more of a warm, dark brown. And I'm going to use it on the thigh, the back part of the leg. It goes right up under the wing. I'm going to put that on both legs for the upper part. Now notice on the bird's legs that the knee joints are the thick part. So the thighs are the thin part, the knees are the thick part. Totally like unlike us humans. Okay, and now one last little bit before we get into some of the plumage. You'll notice that on the shoulder, there's a patch of warmer feathers that's almost like a reddish violet. So to get that color, I'm going to take a little bit of red, a little bit of blue, mix the two together, maybe a little more red. I want it to be very red violet. And then put a good chunk of white in with it to lighten it. If that's too red, you can always throw some yellow in it to make it more brownish. Test your color on your reference photo and then paint the shoulder. I just realized I didn't paint the legs with you. If you haven't already, then take some of the umber for the dark parts on the legs. Making sure those knees are the whitest, darkest part on the leg. All right. Is everybody caught up at this point? Give me a wave if you need another minute. Okay, one more minute. The next section is important, so I want everyone to be caught up.
Sean, I have a question. Do you have a
Sure.
little touch of white down here at the bottom of yeah, right there. Is that
It's
white?
not white, it's actually light blue. So it's that
Okay.
same light blue that we used before.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Remember, it's always good to ask questions because if you have a question, somebody else probably does too. So please feel free at any point. Okay. So for the next section, you'll need a liner. Now, a liner is a brush that comes to a point. It's a thin point. Usually, liners have a thick amount of hair here and a very thin tip. So that means they hold a lot of liquid that gets stored up in the ferrule and it releases to the tip in an even stroke. So liners tend to be super expensive. The one I'm using is not, so it's not as high of a quality, but they're worth the price because you need it to be able to make the small thin lines. So to use this brush, I always dip it first in whatever solvent I'm using so that it has the shape. Now, we're going to be doing some of the breeding plumage on this bird. You see these beautiful, long, thin lines. I want you to practice on the reference photo first. So to get that color, this is still light blue. So going back to the palette, this is pure white. Light blue is just white with a little bit of blue mixed in with it. If you need to mix this, try not to gum up the tip of your brush. You don't want to have too much paint on it. If you dip it in water first, it should be pretty thin on your paint. So I'm getting the paint just towards the tip. There's some stored in the ferrule. I'm going to practice first on the reference photo and then try it in life. So notice that these feathers start and then curve, not in an even way, by the way. So the curve goes down and it's like a pattern of hair, as if you were doing a portrait and you're doing the hair on somebody's face. So you want to follow that pattern with your brush, and you want to make your strokes long and elegant. So think in your mind, long and elegant, and follow the pattern. When you're ready, start by thinning the paint with your solvent. Get a thin application on the tip of your brush so that your brush isn't overloaded with paint. And then make the strokes short, confident, and decisive. Now, you'll have to reload probably frequently. Keep your wrist supple and you're moving um, as you do these strokes. If you screw it up, just lick a paper towel or dip it in the water and it'll erase off the wet paper towel. It's really good practice for your brush skills. Remember to take the breeding plumage all the way over the back. It's on the top part of the back as well. And where the feathers connect to the wing itself, you can just go over that lightly with a flat brush and blend it into the paint. If you have a little bit of water on that brush, it'll blend right in. You don't need to um, show every single feather where it attaches to the wing. Think long and elegant strokes. Long, elegant strokes. When you're done with the ones on the back, we're going to do the ones on the throat. Same situation. Long, elegant strokes. And these are just the light blue ones. So they're the part of the neck that's in shadow, not the sunny yellow light ones. Right. Now don't get too caught up in these. Do your best. And if your brush skills are not quite there yet, this is a good challenge. It'll get you better with your brush. If they are there, congratulations. You've just accomplished something that's a hard thing. All right, now we're going to move up to the top of the head. I'm still using light blue, so keep that paint fairly thin and towards the tip of the brush. Now remember the cow leg on the top of the bird's head. I'm going to use the very tip of the brush, paint that highlight. Okay, now we're going to move to the limning, or the light that you see around the edges of the bird. Now it isn't an outline, so pay attention on the reference photo. You see it start off with whiskers on the bottom here. It hits the bottom part of the neck, the curve of the neck. It hits the outer part of the neck, the back, and then stops right at the top of the back. It hits the whole front of the neck, the feathers in the front quite a bit, and there's a pool of light where the feathers attach to the neck, and then the chest, the front of the thighs, and the front of the legs. If that same warm color doesn't go on the back, but it does hit some of those breeding plumage feathers on the other side. So the very top part of the back is light blue and it's facing the sky. So you're getting sky reflection. Whereas the feathers, the breeding plumage, are getting some of the reflection from the water. So they look a little warmer. Light bounces around in the environment and often does that. So to mix the color, this is regular white. This is cool white. So we're going to make a warm white. So that means I'm starting off with a little bit of yellow on a brush and pulling a whole lot of white into it. So I'm making a warm white. Now I purposely mixed it with another brush so I didn't gum up my liner brush. And I'm going to use the liner brush for the limning because I can get a really thin line with it. I dip it in the solvent first and then get the paint just on the tip. I'm going to start on the chin and put those whiskers. So the whiskers go towards the bird And they're not a pattern. So be careful. Don't make them too perfect. You know who you are. Remember to keep dipping your brush in solvent every time you reload it with paint so that it keeps the paint fluid. Now very gently limn the curve in the neck and the hitch in the throat. On the neck feathers, you can go a little bit rougher. When it comes to the breeding plumage, that's bright yellow-white. Same thing, thin your paint and make very long and elegant strokes, curving the brush towards the bottom. And then continue the limning onto the thighs and the legs. When you're done with the front side of the bird, there's only a little bit on the back. So starting off at the cap at the top of the head, right under the cowlick, put that touch of light, very thin line, and don't think it needs to be perfect. The more ragged and broken it is, the more real it's going to look. All the way along to the back, and then just on the hump of the back. Stop there. The last place you'll put it is on the breeding plumage on the other side of the bird. And that's just 2 or 3 strokes, and you're done. So let's spend 1 or 2 minutes correcting any mistakes or finishing up any details. And then we'll go to our final critique. So as you are finishing up, a couple of important points to keep in mind. You want the transitions between the feathers to be smooth and seamless, as if there are no beginnings or ends to the patterns in the feathers. You don't want them to be blocky or geometric. So make sure that they're very smooth. There's some areas where it's clear, like the shoulders and some of the wing feathers, that can have a little more strong up pattern. But for the most part, try to keep your transitions smooth and blended. Smooth and blended. If you're using oil, this will be a lot easier than if you're using acrylic. Acrylic dries so quick that by the time you come back with your lights, it's probably already done. All right, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm not going to do anything else in this painting tonight. I'm going to let it sit, maybe have coffee with it in the morning, and then it'll tell me if it needs something else. Remember, it's super easy to overwork a painting, especially when it's simple. So once you're finished working from dark to light and you put your final light touches in place, try to leave that beautiful painting alone. Come back to it when you have a fresh mind. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So make sure you're fresh before you come back to that painting. All right. Whoever is finished, give me a wave and then we'll take a final look.
I am.
Okay, wonderful. Let's take a peek, Candy. Ooh,
Does that
ooh,
come back?
very nice. So, Candy, one of the things that's working right away is the feathers on the back and the wing. I
Okay.
really like it. Now, can you bring your painting up close to the camera, really close? All right, so some of the breeding plumage
Hmm.
needs to be a little longer and more elegant.
Okay.
Like, notice on the reference photo that those feathers come down almost to the legs.
Okay.
So you want them to be very drippy and elegant.
Okay.
On the face, I would go a little stronger with the orange on the beak.
Okay.
Everything else looks pretty good.
Good. Thank you. Yeah.
If you make those changes now, I'll give you a second chance to show the piece.
Oh, okay. Sure.
All right. All right. Who else is ready? Wonderful, Suzanne.
Yeah, I was getting to the point
Ooh.
where it needed to be I just needed to stop. It's like just put the brush down, step away from the palette.
You're so good that you catch yourself now. That's wonderful. That is definitely the first step to being able to stop overworking. Um, so the face looks better, the beak looks better. There is a forehead where the beak connects to the forehead. It's a definite divot. I would make sure that's clear and don't let the top of the head become too rounded. Now, having said that, make sure that the hitch in the throat is really thick and rounded. So it's a little fuller.
Here.
Uh-huh. It's a
Okay.
little fuller and lighter right at the hitch. And then all the way in front, there's some highlighting, some limning in that front. So I would go a little stronger with that limning there.
Okay.
Um, the the hump in the back is still not quite there.
Okay.
I know it's baffling. That may be one of those things to do tomorrow when you're fresher.
Yeah.
I like how
I
you did the leg. That's it.
okay. Thank you.
That's it. You're welcome. It's beautiful,
Thank you.
really beautiful. Okay, Bruce,
All right, now where do I flip this thing?
look for the
There
icon
we
for
go.
there you go. You did it.
There we go.
You're getting good at this Zoom
I'm not
thing.
only going to be an artist, I'm going to be a tech wizard when I'm finished this.
That's right. You're going to be an IT. Hey, Bruce, loving the background, loving the texture on the feathers too. You definitely have some beautiful texture. Uh, the darks on the back of the bird look believable, but where the feathers connect to those darks is still a little rough.
Yes.
So I would lighten the area around where those feathers connect so there's some transition.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
don't let the back of the bird in so abruptly. The I know it's cut off by the photo,
Yeah.
but you can extrapolate. It's like a teardrop shape. You have it more like a football,
Right.
but the back end of it is going to come more at an angle a little further back, like a teardrop instead.
Okay.
So do that with a dark blue color or a
Yeah.
dark, whatever the violet color is that you use back there. Use that same color.
Good.
All right. If you make that change now, I'll be happy to give you a second chance in the spotlight. If not, we can do it next week. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Who else is ready? Kate. And then Ann, you'll be after Kate. Holy Toledo. Kate, you never cease to amaze me, gal. All right. The brush strokes really make this painting. Your mark making is exquisite. It gives me a real sense of the patterns of the feathers. You know how you used your brush to show the patterns of the feathers? That worked really well. You also started off with the shape spot on, and that helps immensely. Um, I wouldn't do anything different. I'm just double checking some of the beak and the eye, and
I'm not too sure about that upper wing.
I know it's kind of an awkward thing, but you painted it true to life. I don't think it needs to be changed at this point. If I were going to change anything, it might be to add a little more of the yellow white breeding plumage in the front part of the chest. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I would do different. I love this painting. You did a great job with it, Kate.
Thanks. Color looks so different when on the camera.
Yeah, doesn't it? Well, I think the camera is obscuring a little bit of it too. So
Yeah.
It's not the painting's fault. Okay, Ann, whenever you're ready, I'm going to put you in spotlight.
Okay,
Hey.
so my first bird painting, not too bad.
Okay, good. So what I'm appreciating is the texture on the feathers and how you were able to get a difference between the breeding plumage and the wing feathers and so forth. Now, just like a face, you want to be strong with your crest shadows because it's a backlit bird. So
Mm,
keep those the neck and the feathers darker so that the
yeah,
highlighting really pops.
yeah,
And
it started fading out. Yeah.
yeah, all right, and that's it. You may
And
want to let this set
the
up.
head, I just have to, it's a little too big, proportionate. I'm just going to fix the head back here, just the curve. It's the head is just too big. It grew.
Mhm. Yes, that happens with the limning. It often happens. But some of the rest of the shapes look appropriate. So the rest is proportionate. I would fix that line on the back, definitely on the back of the head. All right, that's it, my friend. Not bad for your first hearing.
Yay.
All right, Lynn.
We're gonna make a Florida artist out of Anne yet, right?
I'd love
That's
to be in
right.
Florida and I'd love to get rid of the snow.
Yeah, I bet.
Well,
That's
and anytime you
gorgeous.
want to come visit, I'll be happy to put you up here.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. Beautiful. That is so
All right,
gorgeous. Wow.
Lynn,
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
change a thing. Don't
Okay.
change a thing. Well, maybe one thing.
Okay.
Between the legs,
Mm-hmm.
it looks such such a different color than the
Yeah.
rest of the background. I
Mm-hmm.
would go ahead and fix that, but don't touch the bird. Your
Okay.
brush strokes on the breeding plumage are
Mm-hmm.
exquisite.
Thank you.
Look at how well you did that. That's a big giant leap forward for you. You're getting much more control of the brush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those strokes are the funnest for me. Those just big,
Mm.
flowy things that brings me
That's,
joy.
that's great. You have your confidence up because you have to be super confident to make those kinds of marks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. I'm so pleased.
Well, thanks. Good instruction. You know what I say? You're only as good as your teacher.
I am honored. Thank you. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you. You're fabulous.
Well, thank you, Sean.
All right. And who else is ready? Anyone ready for a circle back? Candy. Awesome. I'm glad you had a chance to finish. Much better, Candy. Look at how elegant those feathers look now. They're much longer. Okay,
Okay,
that looks
thank you.
much better.
Thank you.
Yes, much better. Love it. Are you going to put some texture or multimedia on top of this? Because I notice you do a lot of collage work.
Me?
Are you going to? Uh-huh. Like the peacock in the background. I see some
Oh,
layering of textures that you did there. Are you going to do something similar?
no. What that is, that was a pre-painted canvas that somebody didn't want. So I just put my
Mhm.
peacock on top of it and then dubbed around in the back a little bit.
Okay,
That's
very
all.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious because it's just an interesting effect.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Candy. Anyone else ready for a circle back?
I can.
Okay, you're on.
Wow, nice.
Much better, Bruce. Much better. More dynamic. Now you can see the play of light and dark. You see what I
Right.
mean? Like it really looks like the bird is backlit.
Yeah.
Good. Very good.
Thank you. That was great.
All right. You are done with this one. Congratulations. You survived. All right. Is there anyone else who would like a circle back?
I fixed
All
the
right.
head. Fixed the head. It's a little better.
Oh, okay. Putting you in the spotlight so everybody can see. That is
Fixed the head.
better. That is much better. Now, don't forget the bottom side of the throat. Look
Ah.
at the negative space shape between the back and the throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part needs a little adjustment too, and then it'll be fixed totally.
Okay. Getting
All
there.
right. Yes, you are, my friend. All right, lovely people. You have survived. This was definitely a challenging piece. Yay! Congratulations. You have Heron. Now, the homework is actually another heron in breeding plumage that's being windblown. So you'll be able to use the same techniques, the same palette. You'll get another workout for that liner brush. So if you found it difficult to make those thin lines, this will give you a little more practice. So a couple of quick tips on the plumage. Try to avoid hard edges. Keep the plumage soft, almost like transitions you see in clouds. You know, very soft, very muted. Keep the hard edges on the limbing or the edge of the bird against the background. And that'll give you the overall shape of the bird. So we want to be impressionists and not perfectionists when it comes to those feathers. Also, make sure your brush is following the pattern of the feathers, just like you would if you were painting the pattern of hair on an animal or a human. You follow the pattern and you make your strokes follow the pattern, and that'll give you the shape of the bird. Yay! Next week, in honor of Valentine's, we're going to be doing a pair of cardinals on a branch of spring flowers. So, yay, cardinals. For those of you who might be snowbirds from maybe someplace north of the border. All right, everyone, have a terrific night. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you
Nice
Thank
one,
you,
thanks.
Sean. Bye, all.
so much.
Bye, guys.